Hi everyone. In this video we are going to demonstrate how we can execute the Fastapi startup events before we run our test. So in our earlier videos I show you the application, Fastapi application. It was pretty simple. We have a single endpoint which was returning hello world. We have another endpoint. Okay, we don't need this endpoint in this video, so we can get rid of this. For our current video we require our application to have a startup event. So generally the startup events are used to instantiate database connections, something that we want to do only once for our application. So I will just use the on event and use this startup. So it's showing us a cross. This is deprecated. Actually the Fastapi now recommends in their documentation that you should use the lifecycle method instead of the on event method. And the reason, they give the reason that whatever you are doing inside the startup event, you are closing those things inside your shutdown event. So you need the same variables. And lifecycle method is simply a single function. So that's the reason being given for its application. But anyway, if you look at most of the code bases, then they are still using the startup events. So I will continue this video with this one, and I will just declare what the application does in our startup. So let's call it a startup, where we can name this function anything, it doesn't matter, and we'll print something that just to show that our event is fired. So we have startup event fired. Okay, that's pretty simple. Now if I close this everything, I will clear it. If I run our server, then you will see startup event fired printed in our console. The reason being that it is the startup event, so it ran when we start our application. I close it down. So in our earlier videos I show you I wrote some unit test for our application. So I have wrote it for the 2 endpoints, so we have already removed one, so we don't need the other one. If I run our unit test now, hopefully I will be able to find the command. Okay, see, it says ran one test and everything went fine, everything was okay, but it's missing something, and which is the startup event file was not printed. So when we instantiate our test client using simple instantiation, then our event is not fired. So Fastapi provides something else for if you have a particular condition that you want the startup event to get fired before you execute your unit test, then you have to instantiate the test client inside the context manager. So let me do it. I will with test, not test case, it should be test client, and pass in the app as client. Okay, and if I now run the unit test, then you will see the startup event was fired. So it's behind the scene what it's doing. It's Fastapi is actually uses starlet behind the scene, and starlets define these functions in test client, which are enter and exit methods. So these functions are defined in the starlet, and then they make sure that all the events are fired when we are starting our context manager. All the startup events are fired, and when the context ends, then the exit method is fired. This is something that is provided by starlet to Fastapi. And so I think, to summarize, so whenever we need to instantiate, whenever we need to run these startup events before we run our test, then we need to use the context manager. Otherwise we can go, and most of the time you will see that you don't need to use this thing, because whatever you are doing in your startup events, like instantiating a pool of database connections, everything you are going to overwrite for your unit test. The unit test is going to be a separate environment. You will be populating your own data. Thank you for watching.